To touch on the background of this space, though, you probably already know this. Zynga is the biggest social games developer in the market space. So just to use them as an example, they didn't exist 4 years ago. They just went public for $9 billion. They are free games to play. They're actually on track to make $900 million this year, but they're free games, which is, you said, 3 to 4% of customers are actually buying things, which are $1 items, $2 items, things that essentially speed up your gameplay or unblock you in the game. For example, in Farmville, you can grow all your crops for free, or you can buy a crop that grows faster for $1. So pretty phenomenal business. The most interesting aspect of this, and the one I really wanted to draw everybody's attention to, probably the thing I'm finding most fascinating as my career takes this pivot, and one that I recently gave a chat to the MBA students at Columbia, because they're stats guys, they're stats and analytics guys, not content guys, but they're interested in knowing how much does stats and data have to do with decision making in the creative industries. So here's a really interesting point. All of this game stuff that we're talking about or will talk about is stuff from the real world. The CEO of Zynga, Mark Pincus, actually says he's not a game developer, he's a marketer. Everything he learned creating Zynga was actually a lot of acquisitions of game companies, but then the use of the social viral channels on Facebook to market his games were learned from the marketing world. But when you apply gamification, which is things like levels, points, and rewards, things we already know from, say, these Amex levels or points from your Aeroplan, when you apply those plus the social viral channels of spamming users on Facebook or emailing and knowing about your users, you get something pretty powerful. And that's the there in that huge success of Zynga. So this, just really quickly to give you an example of what we found ourselves building, we initially made our first game for download on Yahoo. It's called Hollywood Tycoon. When we made our next game, we rebuilt our system for Dirty Dancing, where in this game you can see I'm managing Kellerman's Resort, which is a resort in Dirty Dancing that Baby goes to that summer. And we've got things we can buy. I can buy a hot tub here and I can place it on the map, and then my customers go there. I can make romance waves and make my individual singles fall in love, and they form couples and do things. All of that activity in the game, and right now you're looking at something that actually costs real money. So there's lots of items you can buy for free, but there's a few that you can pay real money for, and they give you extra abilities inside of the game. All of that, every single action, actually I'll go back and just say, every single action in that game, when guests arrive in the cars and I click on the cars, when I drop romance waves to make singles into couples, every single action is being tracked on the server. So that means that if I wanted, instead of to display the stats up here at the top of the screen as my level or my points, if I was the manager of the game, I could display the same data in a format like this, which is a dashboard. So this is where I go every day to see the health of my game. So that's our initial growth curve to over 1 million users, and there it continues to grow there at the bottom. That set of bar graphs is actually my users coming in, the first step of being in the game, and then where they drop off at the next step and the next step. So I know exactly at what step in the game I'm losing users. The other graph is my hourly revenue. The graph below that with the green and the red line is my in-game currency versus real-world currency. The pie chart is which items people are buying, which cars they're buying, which cars they're not buying. The little speedometer there is actually how my health of my game was. I snapshotted that yesterday, so it was pretty low relative to the last week. Any data I want from the game I can get. This is an incredibly powerful tool because it means, as Mark Pincus says, making game design decisions becomes as much about what we do know as much as what we think we know. So I can come in here and actually do A/B tests. I can create an item in the game and give it out to half my users under one name and another half of my users under another name and see which one sells more, and within an hour have a decision on the naming of that product. I also have a control panel that gives me, this is a mock-up we did for Harlequin, but a control panel that gives me specific data on the users, so I can drill down to individuals. There's a very great presentation this morning from Chuck about these big batch groups of users who were born under a certain generation. I can look at each individual. So there was a great article about a week ago in the Globe and Mail on Saturday that said 2012 would be the year of big data. Big Champagne, which is a data company who's bought by Live Nation to help them predict what kind of tickets they're going to sell. They're talking now about data not just for segments, like how about this group of males this age in Toronto, but actually each individual user. And that's the power we have, because when you play or use our products through the social graph, we know who you are. We know what kinds of things you're doing inside of our product. Then we have the ability to edit the game in real time. So like I said, change the name of the product. This is a house for Dirty Dancing, or change the pricing, or change the rules. Make it easier to level up. Make the rules for the game a little bit easier. So that's the end of my slides, and I'll just say this. The next phase of the company for us is we're taking all of that technology and learning, we're applying it outside of games. So the next step for us is to do this kind of work. We just recently took an investment from Star Media Group, applying that to newspapers, applying that to music, applying that to television, because all of the mechanics of what we're doing in Dirty Dancing, you're actually doing when you're on a website and you share a newspaper article, you buy a virtual good like a digital chapter of a book at eHarlequin and so on. So now that I'm working towards music, I'll hand it over to you, Kieran.
Thank you. My name is Kieran Roy. I am the general manager at Arts and Crafts, which is a relatively small full-service music company here in Toronto. Like many music companies in the last 10 years, we were started and have moved to a full multi-rights organization. We do everything from artist management, traditional label role, music publishing, licensing, merchandise. I think I'll be a nice contrast to this panel in that our use of data is far less sophisticated and widespread than my counterparts here. That's the kind of data I would love to have about our customers, their engagement with our artists, but something that is, for better or for worse, either not possible or not permissible, certainly within, more specifically, our kind of end of the music spectrum, which is a bit of a boutique, where we have a bit of a different relationship than maybe a major label and a pop star would have with their audience. We also have a free-to-play model where maybe 1% to 7% of people pay for our goods, but we actually didn't invent the model, our customers did. But that aside, you roll with it, right? It's an exciting time to be in our business. Getting back to tying into all that generational talk from an hour ago, when I speak to my parents, they have absolutely no idea what I do for a living. They can't explain it to their friends. And if my dad knew I was in a panel wearing jeans, he would lose his mind right now. But beyond that, when I explain to my parents how quickly we can affect change at work, change strategy, change business models, change the contacts we do work with, they're completely dumbfounded. And being in an industry like music and working for a small company, it's rather exciting at this time. Despite the turmoil, it's the challenges. With challenges, obviously, come opportunity, and I see certainly part of this kind of data revolution as being a part of that.
Thanks very much, guys. Just first in question, there's been remarkable agreement on this 1% to 7% statistic, and I'm wondering why on earth it would be that number rather than 10%, 15%, 20% of your users actually being monetizable.
Do you want to tackle that?
That's good.
Look, I think the fascinating thing to observe about that number, and the Zynga number is 3 to 4. First of all, we have accuracy and insight in that number for the reason we were just showing, which is you can see all the users and you can see where the money's coming from, so it's not hard to find out. Statistically, this is how many people are paying. And most of the social game companies have been reporting some of their results in the early days. And as you said, there was a 15-year history in the Asian free-to-play, massively multiplayer game space. But here's the interesting thing once you know the 3 to 4% who are spending. If you want to, you can stop having such a focus on the other 96%. And so actually, theoretically, if you wanted to, you could make the bulk of your game focused on those paying users and ultimately reduce the other free users and actually make that percentage more like 50 to 70%. However, there's a value in having those free players because they create the community. And in a lot of these games, the content is the players and the activity of the players. So one of the reasons I don't have to make new items and new activity in the game every day is the other 700,000 players are creating that activity and interaction with their friends. And they're the broadcasters of the game to their friends. They're my distribution channel. So when they play for free, they're the ones telling their friends by posting on Facebook or Twitter that there's activity. So usually we want the broadest possible audience, but we do focus our marketing on those 3 to 4% people who are paying.
And I guess also what I should say is that the 3 to 7% is a generalization, but at the same time, we need to separate them between the casual market and the traditional gaming market. Because with the casual market, you get, I mean, the word casual, you have people that will play less for maybe a lesser period of time, that might be less engaged, that will be a little more volatile. When we're in the segment of the traditional gamers, you're talking about a group that's highly engaged, that will play for a very, very long time, and that one experience that are much more complex than what you have in the casual world. So when we do MMOs for core gamers, basically, we have less users, much less than what you have in your social games, but we have a higher percentage that we are going to monetize, where if we're lucky, we'll be close to 10. If we're at 10, we would be extremely happy. There are some big MMOs that are very successful at 15 and 20%, but that's the hit. I mean, you cannot plan a project on that.
There's also quite a range in what people will spend. We have one diehard Dirty Dancing player who spent $1,400, just one player. So it's pretty incredible when you see what are called whales, which is a borrowed term from the casinos. But when you have the whales, they become your very special customers. In fact, if they only knew they could have equity in my company for that.
And Kieran, how are you when it's not free to play? And obviously there was the sideways remark about the free to play model in your business. How are people actually paying you?
Well, you know, for the great portion of our business, we're not dealing direct with our customers. For instance, like Nathan is, you know, we've tried to take a leadership position in that and drive our direct-to-consumer business, which is a big buzzword in the music business right now, because with that comes some opportunity to mine some data, to refine our marketing message, and to deliver more meaningful product. But for the most part, whether it's a physical product that has to go through a distribution chain or even through an iTunes, there's always an intermediary that holds that data and most often can't share it. You know, that said, getting back to kind of the product development side, and as you said, the whales, which maybe I'll use that term, we'll see how it goes at our shop, but we've actually spent a lot more time trying to actually segment our audience and create different products at different price levels, kind of based on your affinity for an artist. You know, one thing I think maybe that the music business has kind of been asleep for many years is product has remained at the same price throughout its life cycle. There's one price for the biggest superstar artist versus a developing artist. There's one package. You know, the biggest Michael Jackson fan, for instance, buys the same piece of plastic for the same price as the least casual fan who needs to hear on the radio for 2 years before, you know, being convinced. And we've kind of moved away from that now with you're seeing a lot of deluxe packages or experiential packages for that super, you know, hardcore fan, all the way to much more of a free or freemium type approach for a casual fan that you hope to then convert at some point.
Could you translate that into ticket sales, experiential, as in attending events and all the rest of it? Yeah,
sure. Like we had a very successful pre-sale campaign with two recent artists, with Feist and with a Vancouver artist named Dan Mangan. And in both cases, to launch their album, you know, obviously your most interested fan is going to come off the top. They've got the pent-up demand. So this is the time when you would want to offer a package that might have not just the music, but maybe some extra content, maybe some merchandise, maybe they want to be first in line for ticketing opportunities. And if we can put that all together, offer some type of bundling discount, we can sell that direct to the consumer before it kind of filters through the rest of the channels. And in doing that, we learn more about our customers. We're able to, you know, to earn more revenue, and willingly, you know, we're not robbing people. You know, for the longest time, these customers have wanted to be more involved, and maybe have had to go through other channels to get that product or service or experience. And now, as a content producer, we're moving ourselves directly to the consumer and serving many of those roles.